Hi, this is Judy at Judi in the Kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make my English muffin bread. This is bread that I used to make all the time in my bakery bistro, and I used to make it in the loaf, and I sold lots and lots of this bread. The recipe is coming straight out of my cookbook, Secrets of a Professional Baker. These are recipes that I used all the time in my bakery bistro. If you're interested in a copy, I've got a link on the screen where you can purchase it. If you would like just this recipe printed out for you, I have a link on the screen where you can download just the recipe. So we're going to do this in a loaf form. In another video, I'll show you how to make English muffins in the individual little muffins like you typically would buy in the grocery store. Now, if you've watched my bread videos in the past, you know that I prefer to weigh flour, but I do try to give measurement equivalents. What I have here is 1 pound, 10 ounces of flour, and that's equivalent to 5 1/4 cups. Now, the recipe itself calls for bread flour, but there's a little asterisk by it, and it says you can use a blend of all-purpose and bread flour. And I usually did this in the bakery, and I have about a half and half mixture here, half bread flour and half all-purpose. The reason for this is that all bread flour is going to give you a very chewy texture in your bread, which is what we like in some breads, but in English muffins we like them to be a little more tender. So I have half all-purpose and half bread flour in this. Now to this I'm going to add 4 teaspoons of sugar, 1/2 ounce of RapidRise yeast. Notice that that's RapidRise yeast, and that's equivalent to 4 teaspoons, level teaspoons of yeast. And then I have 2 teaspoons of salt, and to that we're adding 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And so what I'm going to do is just stir this together until it's combined, and I'll do this while our liquid ingredients are warming up. Now what I'm going to do next is warm up the liquid ingredients in this small pan. 2 cups of milk of your choice. It could be almond milk, it could be whole milk, it could be skim milk, whatever you want. Whole milk works out really well in breads. And then to that I'm adding 1/2 cup of water. And I'm going to put this on the stove and warm it up to between 100 and 130 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to use an instant read thermometer to do this. I will be back when the liquid ingredients are warmed, and in the meantime I'm going to finish combining the dry. Alright, I have mixed together the dry ingredients really well, and I put them in a mixer bowl. I'm going to use my stand mixer to knead the bread for me. You don't have to do that. I prefer to do that because it's just easier, it's faster, it's less messy, and it gives a better result. Now, my liquid ingredients have warmed up. One tip here is if you over warm it in your pan, all you need to do is pour it into a fresh bowl that's room temperature, and the coolness of that bowl will bring your temperature down of your liquid really, really quickly, and then you're good to go. So now all I'm going to do is add our liquid ingredients, that's the right temperature, in to the stand. And I'm just going to mix them myself to combine them so that when I use the dough hook here on the dough, that I'm not going to have flour spraying all over the kitchen. I can't have that. So just going to mix it myself a little bit, and then I'm going to put it on a medium-low speed on the stand mixer and have it knead for me for 8 to 10 minutes. If you're going to knead by hand, you want to do it for the same length of time or longer, however long it takes for you to get a very, very smooth dough. When you're mixing by hand or when you're kneading by hand, you want to be careful not to knead in a lot of extra flour, or your dough and your bread is going to be on the dry side, and you don't want to do that. I'll be back after this is kneaded for 8 to 10 minutes. My bread dough has kneaded in the machine for 10 minutes, and I really want you to see this because it's a very, very soft dough. If you've kneaded this by hand, chances are yours is not going to be this soft because you will have kneaded extra flour into it, and this is why I like using the mixer. Now you could, as an alternative to actually kneading it, you could just leave it in a bowl and keep stirring it with a spatula like this. I want you to see that it's very elastic. It's very elastic, but it still is very soft. Now this is a very active dough, and a lot of times I actually skipped the next step in the store. You can skip it if you want to, but I'm going to show you how active this is. I'm going to let it rest for 10 minutes, which is what you typically would do with bread that's made with the instant yeast, the quick rising yeast. I'm going to spray it with nonstick spray, just in case it rises to this extent. I'm covering the bowl with wax paper and then with a towel. And I'm going to let it sit for 10 minutes and show you how much it rises, and then we're going to form 2 loaves. My bread dough has rested for 10 minutes, and I'm going to take the towel and the wax paper off of it and show you that it has come up in the world. It has risen to the occasion quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is put it on this floured board, and you notice I have one glove on. And that's only because I have a Band-Aid on one hand and I don't want to goof that all up with a bunch of flour. Alright, so we're going to put it in here and add the flour to it just a little bit so that I can work with it. And then I'm going to cut it into 2 loaves and put them in pans that I have sprayed with non-stick spray, and then coated them with cornmeal on the inside. You see I put cornmeal, whoops, there it is, cornmeal on the inside of 2 8x5 loaf pans. See, this forms loaves. Works really well when you put a little bit of flour on that. Now I have a knife that I'm going to cut this with, and I've actually sprayed this with nonstick spray. This dough is so sticky. The nonstick spray actually helps to keep things from sticking to it. You see that sliced really easily. So all I'm going to do is just kind of roll it just a little bit here. Take the cut side down and place it in a pan. There's one. The other, same difference. Place it in the pan. Doesn't have to look absolutely perfect. You're going to see little air bubbles form here. This is why it's called English Muffin Bread, because there's a lot of air holes that do form that make English muffins have those holes in them. Now, to give it more characteristic texture, flavor of English muffin bread, I'm going to do something a little different than what I've done with the other breads. I'm going to spray it lightly with some non-stick spray, and then I'm going to sprinkle some cornmeal on the top of it. The cornmeal is what helps to give it that English muffin flair too. Not a whole lot, but just enough. Now you can allow these to rise in the oven-proof box as I've shown you in another video, but this dough rises so fast. All I'm going to do is cover it with the wax paper and the towel, and I'm going to put it on top of my stove that I have just preheated to 375. If you haven't already turned it on, at this point is a good time to turn it on. It takes roughly 20 minutes for it to rise. You have to watch it closely because you don't want it to pour over the sides here because it is a soft bread dough. So I'll be back after this is risen. I allowed this bread to rise on top of my already preheated oven at 375 for 20 minutes, and you can see why I prefer to do this way. This dough is so active. If I had this in my oven as a proof box, then I would have to take it out at this point, turn the oven on, and there would be another delay of 5 to 10 minutes before the oven is hot enough, and the bread could very easily overrise during that time. So this is why I like to allow this bread to rise on top of a hot oven. So at this point I can put them straight in the oven, ready to go, And they're going to bake again at 375 for 25 minutes. I'll show you what they look like when they're done. This bread has baked right for 25 minutes, and oh, does it smell heavenly in here. I wish I had aroma vision to share this with you because it's just wonderful. Now you see this one has a little lump on the top of it. It's an air bubble that formed in there. That's very characteristic of English muffin bread or English muffins, and I wanted to leave it there. I could have popped it and broken it before baking it because I did see it forming, but I thought, no, let's just let you see what it looks like. As you can see, making homemade English muffin bread really isn't all that hard. With just a little bit of equipment and a little bit of know-how, you can go a long way with making your own homemade fresh bread, and it really is worth taking the little bit of effort and a little bit of time to do it. Email me your questions, comments below. Give it a try if you can. And this is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. Have a wonderful day. Happy baking.